Hey, folks, we will get to the show in just a second, but I wanted to quickly ask, if you haven't done so, it would mean so much to both Rosemary and myself if you went to one of the places where podcasts exist, the Apple Podcast Library, the Google Podcast Library, and left some thumbs up, some stars, the ratings, the text, the things to let people know what you think of the show. That would mean so much to us and be very helpful so that other people can learn about the show and check it out as well. We appreciate that so much. And hey, while you're here, let me let you know what's coming up in this episode of iOS Today. Rosemary and I are talking all about documents, how to create them on iOS, how to organize them on iOS, and everything in between. Of course, we cover some of the news that's happening right now, answer your questions. We've got some great feedback in this episode. Before we round things out with our app picks of the week, how to use Discourse on your iOS device with a great app for that, and polls with friends and family. Stay tuned for iOS Today.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Casper. You deserve a fresh start this year. Reset your rest with supremely comfortable mattresses, bedding, and more from Casper. Go to casper.com/iOS Today and use code iOS Today for $100 off select mattresses. Wow. Welcome back to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, watchOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, VOS, that could be in the future, CarPlay, and so much more. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent, and I am joined across the internet and across the pond by the incredible Rosemary Orchard. Hello, Rosemary.
Hello. I'm glad that I don't have to swim over every week. That would be quite time-consuming.
You know, you would have the strongest arms in the history of the universe, which would be kind of interesting.
And I'd have a very waterproof backpack for my iPad that I'd have to take with me every time, too.
All of these apps, they're falling out of my bag. We've got a great show. So leading up to the show, I said, you know what would be good? Is talking about sort of document creation and document management on iOS, iPadOS, because I think folks tend to look to the PC and the Mac as the place where document creation and document management happens. But so much of that can take place on iOS and iPadOS devices. And especially when you've got, you know, the proper accessories to go along with it. You were just talking about a mouse that can switch between devices on the fly. And I've got, you know, a keyboard, a Bluetooth keyboard here that's paired with my iPad that's up on a stand. So really, when you start to look at all of these different tools that are available, you realize that, hey, maybe you don't need to have a full-on PC or a full-on Mac to get stuff done. So we should talk about some of the apps that are available to you in the App Store or just by virtue of having the device. So yeah, where do we want to start? Because I like where your head is with the first one that's on the list, because people go, you got Finder on the Mac, and is it Explorer on Windows? I think Windows Explorer. I think that's what it's called.
File Explorer. Yeah, it's Internet Explorer and File Explorer with the same base underneath, actually. And you can type a URL into the address bar of File Explorer on Windows, which is funny. But yeah, so that's a random Windows tip for you there today. But the place I'd like to start is with the Files app, because I mean, for a long time, Pages shipped with the first iPad. So the first iPad, you could buy Pages, but it wasn't great. And for ages, people said, no. You know, the iPad isn't great for creation. It's great for consumption, but not creation. And the Files app, that is where things really changed, because the Files app allows me to, you know, browse files. And I've got on my iPad, I've got iCloud Drive. And if I modify my sidebar, then I can enable different apps here. So, for example, DevonThink, Yoink, one of my favorite apps that I mentioned at the beginning of the year, Quip, Working Copy, Page, Secure Shellfish, Dropbox, all of these other apps, you can then have appear in your sidebar. And then you can, if you've signed into them, I deliberately signed out of Dropbox to trigger this message, then you can sign in and then you can just browse around inside of any of these apps. And, if you've set up the right apps, you can connect directly to servers and have that remembered. Or here at the top, you also have a connect to server option. So if you want to connect to an SMB share, SFTP, all of those things, you can connect to all of these different files and actually, look at them, and not just look at them, but you can also preview them. You can see that I've got little icons here on, for example, this Pixelmator, this Pixelmator file, which is allowing me to preview that. And then if I tap on any of these files, then it should open them in whatever the correct document editor is. This is just a list of dates that I needed to put in my calendar. And I just wanted to go through and double check to make sure they were all there. But Files is a great place to start with file management on iOS, because you can actually connect to, different providers. You can select, delete, unzip, zip files, all of that. So if you've got actual documents,
we got to stop there.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me just quickly say this for those listening and not watching. iOS Today is a great show for watching. We do try to make sure that the listeners out there can hear, but if you have the opportunity, you should always check out the show with video, whether you go to YouTube or you download it to your devices. But shout out to Anthony Nielsen, our technical director of this show, because, oh my God, even better.
Everyone.
So we are doing some of the magic here. Example, Rosemary, she has it set up so that there's a circle of her face over the top of her iPad so that you can kind of see her while she's talking about it. And this is something that we set up using the app that we use, Ecamm Live. But Anthony, without even you didn't have to say anything. He just figured out a way to pull up our faces as circles onto the screen as well, so that it blends with the rest of the show. So beautiful, wonderful. Thank you, Anthony. And zoomed in.
That was Burke. He zoomed in on the camera for some reason.
We appreciate you for doing that and making the show great. Okay, continue. So, I wanted to stop you because that's something that I think we need to zoom in on there. You said zip and unzip files. So if I remember correctly, there was a time when the Files app, first of all, the Files app on iOS is a big deal. It is the finder for iOS, and we didn't used to have that. But I remember a time when I had to have a third-party app in order to unzip files in the Finder, or excuse me, in the Files app. So tell me, when did that change? And that is just a built-in tool now?
Yeah, it's just a built-in tool. When did it change? That's a good question. I think this changed a couple of iOSs ago. I know definitely it was around in iOS 13, but I don't remember if it was in iOS 12. But if anybody's curious, the way that you zip or unzip files, I'll start by creating a zip. So you would use the select button in the top right to, go ahead and select files, or you can just sort of start dragging across files. It's a little tricky to demo it when I'm actually trying to show people. But I'll just select a couple of files. And then there's this more menu. That's giving me the option to download, unfortunately. So I'll just have to do that. And hopefully these won't take very long. They shouldn't be very big files. There we go. So now I should be able to, maybe it was under the share menu. I'm having a moment today, apparently. That is very strange. I have completely forgotten how to zip files on iOS. But you can indeed zip files. And I believe if I scroll down, then I should have a convenient zip file that you just tap to unzip, actually, which is, really great that it's so easy to do. I believe I'm going to need to pop into my downloads folder. There we go. I have books.zip. And then once that has downloaded, because in this case, it's quite a large file that I shared with a friend, it automatically, I've tapped on it, it just downloads it, and then it unzips it, and I've got a folder called books, and I've got 12 books about programming in here that I was sharing with a friend. As I bought them for him for Christmas. So I had to make sure that he actually got all of those. But then I believe, okay, so if you tap and hold, that was it. You need to tap and hold on a folder or a series of files, and then you can use the compress option, and then it'll go ahead and actually make a zip file for you, and that's a .zip. It won't do .rar or any of the other fancier compressions, but it will absolutely do standard zip files, which is great. And it also means if you download a zip file in Safari, that automatically downloads to your downloads folder. And if you tap on that in Safari in the download section, then it will go ahead and actually just unzip that straight in files for you. So you're good to go. You don't actually need to start digging around with third-party apps. If you want to, shortcuts might be a good place to start. Might be a little biased there, but there's plenty of other apps that can handle things too. I know the chat room's just mentioning File Explorer, which is an alternative. But there's plenty of options for zipping and unzipping files on iOS, but Finder or Files, which is Finder on iOS, can do it too.
Yeah, see, I keep wanting to call it Finder because it essentially works as Finder on iOS. So what I like about that is that it's a good way to kind of remember it, keep it in your mind, to know what it is intended to do. And what I like is that it continues to improve. Apple continues to add new tools to files as folks kind of figure out what they want, what they need from it as well. So it's all around good and like I said, continues to improve. So let's then talk about document creation, starting with one of the first apps that was kind of shown off as a reason to have an iPad. It was, what can I do with this tablet that you've just announced? Well, you can create documents on it, dear student.
Yes, you can indeed. And that is, of course, Pages. So this is a document that I created. So for a very long time, I worked in Austria. And one of the things that I realized is, of course, different countries have different versions of the NATO alphabet. So I needed to create a document that had the different words that I would need to say when I was talking to somebody on the phone if I was trying to spell something. Because, saying bravo can get you some odd pauses at the other end of the phone where somebody goes, you mean better, or something like that. So this is a document I created in Pages. And by default now, Pages with iOS 14 will open to this preview mode. And then you can tap edit in the top right to actually go into the editing view. But it's got full support. So this is a table and it's just got 4 columns. And I can tap into each one. But as well as all of this, you have full styles and everything else. And if I back out to the documents and create a new document, then you have all of these different templates available to you. So if you want to write a book, then you can do that in Pages on iOS. And there's landscape templates, and there's portrait templates, there's letter templates, which I used earlier or last year, actually, when I was buying a house and I had to write to my solicitor or lawyer to get, all the documents over and everything. There's newsletters, there's cards, there's business cards, certificates, miscellaneous, and you can indeed even create and import your own templates. So if you have templates, for example, for your business or something like that, then you can import all of those. And then if you tap on the see all, then on any of these rows, then you can actually see everything. And you can, of course, change your language as well if you need to. But I find it's just great to be able to tap on any of these templates because they're quite nice templates in Pages. Pages is a great way to just easily create clean looking documents, and usually with very little fuss. And I would say if you want to, really get into document creation on your iPad, a keyboard is going to be your friend, whether that's the smart keyboard or the Magic Keyboard or just a cheap $20 Bluetooth keyboard that you picked up from Amazon that you like typing on. It's going to make your life much, much easier if you can, put the iPad in a position where you can easily see it without straining your neck downwards. And then, type at what feels like a comfortable angle to you.
Yeah. And of course, this is paired with Numbers and Keynote. You've got all of these together and they work well together and importing between them. And because it's, multi-device, you can switch easily between a Mac and an iPhone or iPad. So it's just all around. If you are wanting to do document creation on iOS and with Apple's tools, I would recommend this being one of the first places that you look if you're not after specific, very specific things that you need, because if you start here, you may not have to go anywhere else with things. So you can do what you need to do with Pages.
Yes.
But what if I want to follow the KISS method? Keep it simple, stupid. What if that is my desire? I don't need to make magazines and books and beautiful flyers. I just need a place to create a list of notes that maybe I'll put somewhere eventually. But for now, I just want it to exist in a notes document.
Well, the place I would recommend for that is Notes. And the great thing about the apps that we've recommended so far is they're all free. They're all from Apple. They come pretty much on your iPad. And so Notes, this is a sneak preview of a podcast I've just recorded, a podcast episode, allows you to, just go ahead and you tap the pencil icon to create a new note. You can full screen, so you're just seeing your new note, but you can also, scan documents and take photos, or I choose photos. So if I want to tap take a photo, you can see my slightly messy desk, or if I flip it around, there we go. I'm on screen and I can tap that. There we go. Very, wonderful photo. But if you've got an iPad and you've got a Logitech crayon or an Apple Pencil, then you can actually just pick up that device and, just doodle straight on it. This is my iPad mini in front of me. Otherwise, I would doodle with my Apple Pencil. But my Apple Pencil is the new one for the 11-inch iPad Pro, not the older one, which would work with this. So, but it works really, really well. And on top of this, you can also, share notes. You could share Pages documents too. You can have folders. You can have tables. I could, change this back into light mode. I'm working in dark mode at the moment because it's dark outside here. I'm in the UK. But it works really well. And I've even got whole folders that are shared with other people because that's, it works really, really well. And I love Notes because it's so simple, but it's still got great things like shortcuts integration. If you do ever want to, scale up a little bit and, have a thing where you can automatically create a note for your current calendar event or something like that, which of course you may want to do if you're just taking meeting notes.
Notes, the simplicity of Notes is what really makes it awesome because it has a lot of, in fact, we did a show for a while on the Twit Network called Hands on iOS. I did a show called Hands on iOS. And one of the episodes I went into the Notes app and kind of went deep and talked about all the different things. And so you can start to really understand all of the power that it has. But what's great about it is it's like the perfect amount of obfuscation. It's not like Snapchat in that it has all these powerful features that are hard to get to. All of the features are easy to get to, but it's out of the way. And so you can do something as simple as just keeping notes, and that's the end of it. Or you can get deep and, add tables and add check boxes and checklists and things like that. And so, and share. I've got a bunch of pinned documents. One of my favorite things is with different family, with different friends, and with my partner. Over the course of time, as long as I've had, iOS devices and the Notes app, we've kept a list of media that we may have brought up that the other person hasn't seen, or they've brought up that I haven't seen. And it's just this ongoing checklist of, hey, we've got to watch these things or consume these things in whatever media it is together at some point, because I want to hear your thoughts on it. And so my partner and I have an ongoing list, and he adds things to it, and I'll get a notification about it. I'll add things. We cross off things whenever we, have watched whatever it is together. And one of the notes that's like the most used note, and it was like, where else would I put this but in Notes, because of the easy ability to share it with the person who I needed to share it with, but also because it's just so easy to pop up. I, of course, with the pandemic going on, don't go to a lot of grocery stores in person, don't go out to eat or anything like that, and instead order groceries to have delivered. And for some reason, and I shouldn't say for some reason, because I understand it. When I first moved here and like drove the moving truck here, that night I had seen my apartment once. I'd seen my townhome once before that time. And that night, I completely could not figure out where it was that I lived. Like, I could not remember where my unit was. And the townhome complex here is super confusing. And so anytime someone does a delivery, I always do my best to explain to them how to get to where I am, because I've had like multiple $100s of groceries delivered to the wrong address and completely lost. I've had like all that kind of stuff delivered to someone else or delivered like undelivered because I couldn't find the place. And so I finally figured out a way to like for a foolproof method. And so I have this saved note in my notes and it explains exactly how to get to my address. And then there are 3 photos that I use as well. And one is like a map that has a drawing on it that I made in notes as well and perfectly points to where you're supposed to go. And no matter what, every time I use that. And when there was one time where I didn't use it, and lo and behold, that grocery delivery was not done properly. It never made it to my doorstep. But every other time that I've used that, it has. So it's just like Notes was the place I put that. Notes is the place I go to pull that up. And anytime there's something happens and I just need a quick place to put a note, I put it in Notes. It's fantastic. So first, go check out that episode of Hands on iOS. I think you can still go to twit.tv/HOI. Let me see. Does that lead somewhere? Yes. And then the episode is called, I did 45 of those. It is episode 31, What You Need to Know About the Built-in Text Editor on Your iOS device. So it's called Notes for iOS. And yeah, that has everything you like. It goes deep, as I said, to explain everything you can do with Notes. But I'm glad that you included this. I'm glad that we talked about it because I think Notes is a great starting place. And again, like with Pages, sometimes you go here and you don't need to go past this because of the power that you find out it has.
Yes.
But
absolutely.
What if I do want to get a little bit more in depth? What if I'm like, okay, I know these basic tools are here, but I need to step out and try some of the more powerful stuff. I think this is one of the, like, people sleep on this app that you're about to talk about. And it's an underdog in a sense, or not an underdog. It's an unsung hero. So tell me what app I'm talking about.
Well, you're talking about Documents, which sounds like just a strange app name. So if you're searching for it in the App Store, it's Documents by Readdle, Readdle. And Documents by Readdle is like Files, but on steroids. So if you think of Finder on the Mac, and then for those people who've had experience with, say, Forklift, then Forklift is much more powerful than Finder. Documents is much more powerful than Files in that it can do everything that Files can do, and it can do other things. So previously, if you'd wanted to zip or unzip a folder or a file, then you would have probably come to something like Documents to do it. Nowadays, of course, you can do that in Files. That's not a problem. But you have a bunch of options here that you might find that you can't really easily do in Files. So, for example, I'm just going to pop open the settings here. First of all, one of my favorite things is you can change the scanner. So the default scanner app that's built into iOS is pretty good. But I really, really like Scanner Pro, which is also by these people. And if I use Documents, then I can default to scanning with Scanner Pro. And it's now going to pop up in the App Store because I don't have it installed on my iPad, because I usually scan things on my iPhone because it's much easier to get optical image stabilization on a smaller device. But you also have things like, being able to view and doodle on PDFs and jump straight out to their app PDF expert, and things like that if you wanted to. But they have a built-in browser, which is better at downloading files, I find. I sometimes find some files don't download very well in Safari. But if I want to, then I can pop into here and I can go to, say, twit.tv/ there it is, iOS. Oops, I can't spell. And I can go ahead and download last week's episode as a file, and I'll be able to pause that and do everything else that I need to do or want to do to actually be able to, manage my downloads as I go. So there we go. Download options, and I can download, say, the video. And then this has got video playback built right into it. But here you can see when I download it, I'm not just downloading the file. I can actually rename the file, choose where to save the file, and specify if I want to be asked this every single time. I'll just tap done here. But now under the downloads, I can see it getting on with it. It's quite a big file. I can say, actually, no, I want to download this page, this whole page. And I want to download this page as a PDF. And again, that's something that's easy to do. And now I've got 2 files here. And I can easily, jump to where it is, and I can see these are all in my downloads folder, select them, manage them. Connecting to servers here in documents is a lot easier than in files, simply because it, pre-fills out a bunch of information. If I want to connect to an SFTP server, it gives me what seems like a massive list of fields, but those are the fields I need to fill in. And otherwise I have to know quite a long string, and that it starts with SFTP:// and so on to connect to that in files. Whereas documents makes it much easier for us to do things like that. And we can even sync folders and so on. You can have multiple Dropbox connections in here. And I think over the years I've paid for documents at times, but I use the free features, which are great. So you don't necessarily even have to pay for this app. It is $12.49 a month if you do need to pay for the pro features in it. But pretty much I'm just using the free features.
Yeah, same. One of the things that I like about it that the Files app has not been able to do for me is that sometimes a file that I've downloaded online, it improperly downloaded such that the file extension is incorrect. And so, maybe it's a PNG, but it downloaded it as .png.html for some reason. And so in the Files app, you can't change that file extension and have it actually change the file extension. And so I needed something that would do that, and Documents was able to do that for me. So even some simple things that maybe you couldn't pull off in other places, it does. But yes, what's interesting about Documents is that it was kind of if I remember correctly, it predates the Files app on iOS.
Oh yeah,
and
it
was and it was kind of created to not only be a finder or a file explorer, but also to be a one-stop shop for all sorts of file creation and consumption, because you can edit PDFs in it. You can watch video right in it. It works kind of like VLC in a way, because it can immediately play those video files. It has tools to rip the audio from a video file if you need to. It can organize music. I mean, it is not just a file management app, nor is it a file organizing app alone. It is a very powerful tool. And as you point out, it does this there's so much available that you don't have to pay for. It's kind of wild how much it gives you, where you don't have to add extra to it. Especially like PDF editing and stuff like that is you'd think it'd be simple, but some of the stuff that you need to do is not simple. And so it's really impressive that it can do all of these things together. The most recent addition that it has added is a VPN, and that's not a tool that I use. But
no, I'm using ExpressVPN myself for that, and they're a sponsor of the show. But you don't have to then. This gives you the option of just having a VPN for your browser, which is something that potentially you want if you don't necessarily want your email client going through a VPN. But it also gives you the option to just tap plus and create a text file. It's very, very difficult, as we're going to talk about a bit later, I'm sure, to find an app that just lets you create and edit a .txt file on iOS. There are so many apps out there that will do Pages files. They'll do Markdown. They'll do, rich text, HTML. They'll do everything, but just a plain text file. And I love the fact that on my on here, then I can just tap the plus, and it's got text file right here. My head's in the way. If you're looking at the video, I'm sorry, it's right behind the head. But when I tap plus text, it just comes up, and I can actually just type text. And sometimes you just need a text file. And if you don't type anything in it, it gets rid of it, which is, of course, great. You don't want empty files hanging around. So, I really, really love this app for so many reasons.
Yep, it's everybody should at least go give it a try. If you've got an iOS device, like, you want to give this a shot and just see if it can do what you need it to do for you. I didn't realize you pointed out, I didn't realize you could connect to multiple Dropboxes. Because I have it connected to my main Dropbox. And the one thing that I like is that for Dropbox and for a Google Drive service, those files are immediately available within the app. But because it uses it's doing this because it's the right thing to do on iOS to use the proper file browser API. Because of that, it pops open the Files app as opposed to being kind of available within the UI of the app. And so it's a nicer experience to browse my Dropbox and my Google Drive than it is to browse the Files app because of the way that works, which is, kind of crummy. But I've got the Files app for browsing those files, and I use that mostly for that. But anything else where I kind of need to do more or need some very specific kind of PDF editing skills, or as you said, just like, I just want to create a dadgum file. This is a great way to do that. Let us take a quick break, and we will come back with one of my new favorite apps that I've been using now for a while. But I want to tell you about my good night sleep, brought to me by Casper, who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today. Resolutions? You can do them in your sleep. Seriously, 2021 is your chance to rest harder and sleep smarter. And Casper has cool, supportive mattresses and super soft bedding to make it all possible. So this year, make those resolutions easy. Only Casper mattresses are made with 86 supportive gel pods to align your spine and eliminate aches and pains. It's the supportive comfort you need to wake up refreshed and ready to go all year long. You can get the Wave Hybrid. It's perfect for people who have aches and pains and want a mattress with maximum support and cooling. For the most plush mattress, check out the Nova Hybrid for a plush feel that doesn't sacrifice support. Or, of course, you can try Casper's most popular mattress, which, of course, is the Original mattress. That's the one for sleepers who want both support and cooling. Casper's best-selling Original Casper Pillow is made with a unique pillow-in-pillow design that's soft on the outside and supportive on the inside for all-night comfort. It is truly pillow-in-pillow. They take this very nicely made pillow, and then they stuff it inside of an outer pillow that zips up. And so you can wash that outer pillow more often than you wash the inner pillow, which both can be washed a little less often than, of course, the pillowcase that you put on the top of it. And by doing that, you get extra support. You don't end up with a flat pillow as soon as you would if you didn't have those layers. So I've got 2 Casper pillows. I love my Casper pillows. And the main reason I love my Casper pillows is because of that double pillow layer. So it's like there's a pillow on the inside, but then they've taken 2 thinner pillows and put one on top and one on the bottom, and then made a gusset around the outside of it. And then it zips closed. And so it's pillows all the way down, and it's so much comfort and coolness because the air kind of can fill up in that way. Now, Casper doesn't just make pillows and mattresses. They also make everything you need to refresh your whole bedroom this year, from the super soft percale sheets to Casper's all-season down duvets to the new cozy, calming weighted blanket. That's right, folks. Casper has a weighted blanket. In fact, I didn't know they had a weighted blanket, and now I'm super excited about the weighted blanket. I just love Casper. I have been using Casper for ages. I've had a Casper mattress. Basically, as soon as I was able to afford a Casper mattress, I went and got a Casper mattress. And from that point, I've slept so much better. And then after I got the Casper mattress and was happy with that, I went and got Casper sheets. Then I added the Casper pillows. Then I added the Casper bed frame. Like, I just love Casper. I really do. And it's not just like, it's not that they've sponsored, because I had a Casper mattress before they were ever a sponsor. I love Casper because they genuinely are doing what they say they are doing and can genuinely make your sleep better. And given how much of our life is spent sleeping, it's so important to get a good night's sleep. I'm not going to go into it because we'll be here forever, but it's so incredibly important to get a good night's sleep. And of course, as always, Casper offers free shipping and free returns with no contact delivery. Make 2021 comfortable. You deserve it. Reset your rest by going to casper.com/iOS today and use code iOS today for $100 off select mattresses. That's code iOS today for $100 off select mattresses. Terms and conditions apply. See Casper.com for more details. And yes, please do use that code iOS today at Casper.com/iOS today, because then they know that you sent us. So the next time someone reaches out and says, oh, what mattress should I get? Casper. I'm telling you, it's Casper. You're going to love it. You just got to get it. It's what I've done with so many family members. They're like, what is that mattress? Casper. Boom. I probably sold like 6 Casper mattresses to my family members, and they're all happy with it afterwards. They love them. So anyway, head there and use our code. That lets them know that you came from here, and keeps them keeping on. Thank you, Casper. All righty, let us talk about more apps. The one that I want to talk about.
The next one is one you suggested, right? Because KeepIt's something I keep hearing about from you, and I really want to try it out, but I need more details. So give me the details, Mikah.
I will give you the deets. So the reason that I tried KeepIt was because for the longest time, I don't like to use Pocket, and I don't like to use Read It Later and those kinds of things, because what would happen is it was like a kitchen junk drawer. I would put the files into Pocket, or the pages, the links into Pocket or into Read It Later, Instapaper, and I would never look at them again. And so they would just disappear. And what I wanted was a place to send things and be able to get to them very easily when I needed them. And I needed a place that did more than just take articles and hold on to them. I wanted something that could take files. I wanted something that could take photos, that could take PDFs, that could take web pages and actually download them and save them for me as PDFs if I needed them in that way. I love trivia. I love collecting information and being able to access it later if I need to, versus, a web link that I forget about and kind of disappears into the ether. And so what I'd done for a long time was just kept a text message conversation with myself. So I would send links and images and files to my own iMessage, and then I would check messages and get them from there. But the problem with that is it's not meant for that. And so trying to find those files later or find those messages later, I often would have trouble getting to them. And so I was looking for an app that could do this for me, and KeepIt came along and ended up being the one that works for me. So KeepIt is a way to store, as I said, links, but also PDFs, to store files of all sorts and to organize them exactly as you need them, in folders and with tags and things like that. So I have a knit and crochet folder into which I put different knitting and crocheting patterns that I've purchased or that I found online. And these are PDF files. And so I can easily access these, but you'll see at the top right here, the KeepIt works with the built-in Markdown editor from Apple, from iOS. It has a great share sheet that lets you share files to different people, and it's the built-in share sheet, and then includes ways to add more tags, to add a source for this file, to comment on it. It tells you all the information about the file. It is a full feature kind of finder or file organization tool, but like I said, it goes beyond that in that it lets me, I can basically share from anything. So I can be in any app, hit the share sheet and save it to KeepIt, and it syncs across my different devices. It's on iOS, it's on iPadOS, it's on my Mac, and any changes I make in one place, it pops up with another. But as I said, one of the things that I like is that if there's a link that I find online, I can pop open that link and be able to go right back to that web page if I want to. So this is an example of we talked about the Samsung Smart Monitor on Smart Tech Today yesterday, and I want to remember that because when I decide to upgrade my monitors, I'm considering this. And I know that if I had not saved it somewhere, I would have completely forgotten about it. And so that's just a link. But you can see here on the left in the links page, underneath the main title, it shows the date, and then it shows kind of what the file is. And some of these are web links, but some of them are actual web archive files. So it's actually taken the whole web page and saved it locally on my device so that even if I don't have access to the internet, I can get it. And so there's this really interesting study that was looking at the genome of daddy longlegs, which are like huntsman bugs. And it's talking about how they grow the length of their leg. And that is just so fascinating to me. And so, of course, I had to say that. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm really looking forward to going through and reading that. And so sometimes, yeah, you go and you see, it could be as simple as I go and I see a link on Twitter that I want to read later. But then it can also be, I'm doing research and I'm finding all of these things deep within as you're, doing a deep dive. And I want to save the eventual answer that I get to or the eventual links that I get to that lead me to more search. The other day, I was trying to remember, because at some point I had learned this, but I couldn't remember why your ring finger is the weakest finger. And so this is information that at some point in the future, I know, I'm probably going to forget, but I know that I had learned it at one point. So now instead of having to go and try and find a really good article that explains it, now I've got that saved here. And then there are some things where it's just like, this is a service that I might want to check out. This is, a piece of information that I would want to check out. And so it's just a file and link and a PDF storage and organization tool that works for me perfectly in that it helps me organize these things, but it also just gives me a place to dump and sort through as I need to. And then, as I mentioned, along with tags and stuff like that, you can use the new button at the bottom to then create a new note, which is saved as markdown or text, depending on what setting you choose. And you can see here at the bottom, you can add titles, checklists, all that kind of stuff, formatting for the text, and different organization things that you need to add. And also, no, it's in the way. Down at the, I'm trying to think how to get out of this so that I could get back to that bottom page. So now I can tap on the plus button, and you can see that. Look, there's the built-in scanner for iOS. I can access my photo library to add photos to this. I can take a photo or video live, and then it saves it to my Keep It. I can quickly create a rich text document, a plain text document, or a markdown document. And if I choose Manage Stationery, that lets me add other types of formats. So along with rich text, plain text, and markdown, you can add others. And then, as I said, web link, which of course will let me save a link from the browser, and files, which will pop open the files picker and let me choose from there. So it is not only great that it is, like I said, an organization kind of dumping zone, but that Keep It has gone as far as to add in all of the functionality that iOS provides in this way, so that you can quickly access the markup tools, you can quickly access the file picker, etc. And then the sync has been flawless, which is great, because that means that, often what I'll do is I'll be downstairs watching something or having a conversation with my partner or texting someone, and someone will say something that inspires me to go, I wonder if someone's done a crochet pattern for that. And then I'll look it up. And inevitably I find something, and so then I'll save it in my Keep It. And then later when I'm on my Mac, I will go and find it and either purchase it. Usually it's on Etsy or something like that. Or if it's just for free, I'll download it. And then I have a very specific way that I transform those patterns so that they work for me whenever I decide to make it. And so I can do that on my Mac. I can save it. And then again, it's available in Keep It. And I can access those no matter what device is nearby. So it's the perfect tool for me to have all of those things, and I'm actually checking it instead of it being like Pocket, which I never checked, or Messages, which worked but was hard to find the things that I was looking for. So yeah, that is Keep It. It's available. You can download it for free if you want the premium features, which I can't remember what it does. I think it limits the amount of folders or something like that that you can get. But basically, you can try it out for free, but it's $9.99 a year, which is a really good price. $10 a year gets you all of the syncing and all of the tools to use with it. So I definitely recommend checking out. There was one thing I forgot to mention. It will do text recognition for your files as well. So it does OCR so that whenever you are searching for stuff, you can find things that may not be actual text, but are recognizable text. It can find those as well. So yeah, a little bit like Dropbox in that way. And that is Keep It.
Well, I'm really glad to know more about this because I definitely need something that will allow me to just store my stuff. Stuff is a tricky problem. It ends up piling up, and then you've got weird things like, random caps on the side of your desk. I mean, why is that there? Anyway, we'll come back to that at the end of the show. That's great. I'm really, really glad to find out more about that. And also, I might need a copy of that pork pattern. So if you can send me a link to where you got it, that would be great.
I will. Yeah, I had to buy that one. So I won't pirate it, but I will send you a link. Yeah. Now, great. This is my favorite Markdown editor, and so I'm glad you've included it in the list. I've used all the Markdown editors, but this one's my favorite. What is next here?
Well, the next one is IA Writer. IA Writer is a great app. It's $30 as a one-time purchase, and that's it. But you can get it on iPhone and iPad for that, and there's also a companion Mac application. But it's just a great Markdown editor that lets you easily start, typing, and it shows you what you're typing as you type it. So if you wanted to say, something in bold, then when you make that bold, then you can actually, transform. There we go. Then when you make it bold, then you can actually, see that on your screen. So once I finish that, there we go. That's bold. And I can see that. Sorry, I usually have a physical keyboard, but I was running out of space on my desk today. But once you've done that, you can actually preview, and then you can just see the end result of what your document looks like, which is great because I like writing in Markdown. Markdown is very simple. It's easy to understand. I don't need to worry about, is this emphasis or am I using something different? Or actually, no, this is not going to be straight HTML. It's going to be, Twig or something like that. And so there's going to be HTML, but there's going to be replacements in it and stuff like that. No, I just write in Markdown. And then afterwards, you might have spotted it just now. If I select everything, then I can copy it as Markdown, or I can copy it formatted or as HTML. But it's not just that you can, write a document in Markdown and then copy it. You can actually integrate it with other things. And in the settings, under accounts, if you add an account, then you can add a couple of different platforms. So you've got Ghost, Medium, WordPress. These are, your more traditional blogging platforms. But you've also got micro.blog and micropub, which is an open standard, which can be added to pretty much any website, including things like WordPress, but, other CMSs as well. And this means that you can write something here and then send it to a blog of your choice, or you can, pretty preview it and then you can share that. And if you print it, then of course you can do your good old trick of zooming in on with a pinch to zoom gesture on the print preview to save something as a PDF. Though of course you can export this in a whole bunch of different formats as well. And that's one of the reasons why I like it.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, IA Writer is the tool that I use every day I have a show to create the show notes. It's kind of hard to explain, but essentially what is stored in our show notes document that we use has to be slightly reorganized for the show notes that eventually end up on the website. And so the tool that I use to figure out the title, the description of the show, the tags for the show, and the links and whatnot for the show are all done in IA Writer because it creates a plain text document that I can copy and paste where it needs to be pasted without it messing anything up. And because so every episode of every show I've ever been the producer of is stored in my IA Writer library. So I've got folders for each of my shows, and I can go back and see at any time, this was the title of this episode, this was the subtitle, etc. And then back when I worked at Mobile Nations, which owned at the time iMore, and it was a writer for iMore. IA Writer was the tool that I used for creating blog posts for iMore, because the backend for imore.com used Markdown. And so I had to learn Markdown to start working at iMore. And at that point, once you learn it, it's like, how did I not use this before? Because the beautiful thing about Markdown is it keeps you from having to move your fingers from the keyboard. You can just write and not have to do a whole bunch of thinking and figuring out, or in modern editors where you have to highlight the bit of text and then Command B, or go and click bold in the toolbar, or italics or whatever. This all just happens right from the keyboard as you're going. So it keeps you from having to, it keeps you focused and keeps you from having to kind of pull out of that flow, which is really nice. And I know a lot of folks who use IA Writer for online blogging because of those abilities. And as you pointed out, that one-time fee is very popular. The $29.99 once is actually what made me choose IA Writer over perhaps another one that's made the list that we'll talk about in a minute. So, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of good things about IA Writer, and I find it's just a very simple app, and I like it for the things where I've got files that exist that maybe, they're in a folder I'm sharing with other people, or they're just, created automatically through various systems so that I actually know that I need to, write this article or do that. And those all end up, in IA Writer, and then I just open it and I write and I'm done, and that's it. And it keeps things very, very simple, which is great for those things that need to be nice and simple, but still have powerful functionality.
All right. What is next? This is forever going to make I say this only jokingly and only teasingly, of course, if we did an episode that was about our favorite pet training apps, somehow you would make drafts, make the list. I know you love drafts, and I know so many people who love drafts. So tell us, for anyone who's listening anew, how it is good for document editing and or management.
Well, the thing about drafts is it's not specifically for documents or document editing. The idea is when you open it, you have a blank draft that you just, you start typing in, and that's it, and I've got a nice solar theme here. So I've got a nice blue background and everything right now. But the beauty of drafts is that instead of folders and files, you have a draft and you have tags. And that means that I have a whole bunch of drafts over here in my sidebar on the left. But then I also have workspaces. And this is where drafts gets very, very nerdy, because say, for example, I pop into my Suite Setup workspace here. And then I pop into one of my drafts that I've got. I have this action bar going across the top of my keyboard, and I can have any action group here. And an action is essentially a function in drafts. And these are things that either come shipped with the app, or you can download it from the action directory, or you can create them yourself. And so I've got it set up. So in my Suite Setup group or workspace in drafts, I have Markdown across the side. But then if I open the right, then it should have, I've been playing around with things today, open Suite Setup tools, which are a series of tools that I created or selected and put together to actually, make this into the application that I need. Because when I'm writing, I don't necessarily just need to be able to type. I also need to be able to go and easily grab images from a certain Dropbox folder. Or, I need to pull a whole bunch of things from Airtable and pick what I'm actually doing, so that I can then, say, oh yeah, I'm working on this right now. So I've got, all of my Screencast Online shows and things like that. So that all of those are right here. And then it means that I can just pop into this at any time and go, oh yeah, I'm working on something for automators. Here's some older stuff, but now I've got some, automators actions available. and you're writing in Markdown. And at the end of the day, you can then send that off wherever you want, because you can export it as HTML, plain text, Markdown, etc. There's plenty of different choices that you can export things as. Personally, I love the fact that I can easily create actions and action groups. And the actions, you can get really nerdy. You can write steps for actions in JavaScript if you want. Or you can just say, hey, I want to get the contents of the clipboard. Or I want to set the contents of the clipboard to not the draft. No, I don't want the draft. I just want the title of the draft. Or actually, I want the title, and on the next line, I want some tags and the date that the draft was created. And I want the current clipboard underneath that. And then you can create that as a step, and you can easily add as many steps as you want. You can send things off to reminders, to Twitter, Dropbox, Outlook, Box.com, Evernote. The list is endless pretty much. And if you want to, send your work somewhere once you've done it in drafts, either there's going to be an action to do that in drafts already, or in the action directory, somebody else is pretty much going to have done it for you. And that's what I like. There's a community around this application, which makes it expandable in ways that you might not think. Of course, I also love it has great shortcut support, so you can easily create a draft with shortcuts, but you can also get drafts and find drafts and things like that. But, that just means that there are even more options when it comes to management. And I've done some crazy things with it. Like, for example, if I scroll around, I should be able to spot somewhere. There we go. This, I can preview individual drafts, but also I've created previews to preview all of the drafts in a specific workspace and in a very specific order. And this means that, I can do that very easily. And I've done that. And that was not a lot of work. If I edit this, then you'll see I've got 2 steps here. This is the script that I wrote. That's 23 lines. Okay, so I did have to, write some JavaScript to do that. But basically what I did then is I then just, output a variable and then said, hey, I want to display this variable, and it's down here at the bottom. Let's just see if I can highlight that a little bit. It's a bit difficult to see, but it's the one that's called course content. And then I can actually preview the whole thing right here in, one action step. So that's all of my drafts in one workspace in the order that I wanted, with the exact, excluding the parts of each draft that I didn't want, but I do want to see in the draft. So, yeah, I'm doing some crazy things with drafts.
Absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that there's so much you can do with drafts as long as you understand do you think, is this something where you started using this tool and then you had specific things that you wanted to do, so you tried to see if you could do it in drafts? Or was it more that you saw the stuff that you learned, like all these different things that you could do with drafts, and so you started doing them? Basically, what was
Chicken
drafts kind of like? Yeah, exactly. Chicken or the egg. Yes, precisely.
Yeah. I mean, it was 6 of one, half a dozen of another, to stick with the X terminology. So drafts, because it's not just for Markdown. So I'm just going to pop it back open. If I go into the editor settings, then here you can see my current draft is Markdown, but I don't have to use Markdown. I can also have JavaScript, task paper, simple list, GitHub Markdown, and so on here. And that, just the expansion of these features has encouraged me to think a little bit outside of the box and just wonder what else I can accomplish. And then when I realize, I could do this thing, then as soon as I'm thinking of another problem later of, I'd really like to write this, but I don't really know which application I would love, I would find it easy to do this in, then immediately it pops into my head, well, you could just use drafts for that. And then, I end up doing these things. And, we're going to get to another app in a while, or if we've got time, Ulysses, where you can also, write books and things like that, which is great. But, something like Ulysses is more expensive than drafts. And I find that drafts, it's $30 a year if you want to be able to create your own actions and, action groups and workspaces and things like that. But that is, this is also available in family sharing. So I'm just going to create an example that I've been using recently. And that's the simple list. This is a feature that was recently added to drafts, where you can create lists pretty easily. And of course, I'm no longer seeing the button that I wanted for this. There we go, checkbox. So this would be a task, and you can just create, tasks and stuff here. So I'll just type a few words, and now I can. Well, that's a new word for me, borazon. I'm guessing that's a metal. But now if I tap these, then these are just, simple tasks, and I can uncheck them. And the fact that these features exist allow me to easily, think, okay, well, I don't have to know exactly how this document is going to turn out here. This document is just a thing where I've got text, and then I can add quotes or lists and things to it and come back to it later and, figure out and split it up. So, you can easily see, where you are inside of a draft and things like that. And in your longer and more complex things, then you will also be able to see where, you can rearrange paragraphs and stuff like that, which is just amazing. So that's something that you might find useful. And the fact that all these features are there has allowed me to really just, end up solving my problems because the features are there, but I've not necessarily looked for problems to solve, but I've had problems that have come up and have pre-solved them in drafts without thinking about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yes. All right, let us touch on the other Markdown editor that we kind of have been hinting at. This one is $49.99 a year versus just a one-time purchase, but there are still some adherents to using this app, and I used this at one time. It was my go-to Markdown editor before IA Writer came along for me. And like I said, some people still use this and swear by it, and so there's clearly a positive reason, or a positive to this app. So tell us about Ulysses.
Well, Ulysses is an application that's designed for writing, and it's designed for long-form writing. And so it's used by people like Matt Gemmell, who is the author of a couple of books, including more recently Toll. It is a great application for much longer form writing. So it's not necessarily going to be something that you write a quick, 2-sentence note to yourself in. But if you want to write a novel, then Ulysses is one of the best places to go. It's probably Ulysses or Scrivener, really, if you're looking at writing a novel on iOS. And Scrivener is not without its problems. I've had some issues previously with files not showing up or opening and some formatting issues. But Ulysses is Markdown based, which I love, and it just works. And there's a lot to be said for an application that does what it's supposed to do. So that means that I can, pop it open and I can see here, okay, this is a course that I'm starting writing. I can, see my progress on this. If I have headings or subheadings in my document, then I can see my outline. As you can see, I've only got one heading here, but I've got counters for my characters. I can add goals and things like that. So, if I want to, then I can say that I should have 50,000 or 500,000 not characters. I want 500,000 pages in this, and I've done about 0.2 pages. Whoops. Maybe I'll switch that back to characters, and let's just change this back to, I don't know, 1. There we go. And then I will have achieved my goal. Oh, I've done 180 characters out of 1. I've overachieved, but that's okay. You can set deadlines for things like this. You can see what reading time is currently. So it takes somebody approximately 11 seconds to read this particular note that I've got here. You have keywords for things, all of this. And it's just, I find it great because you can, go ahead and select sheets and then do things with them. You can merge them together. You can easily export things. So if I just export this, then you'll see I've got a nice PDF preview of everything that's all split up for me on different pages, because those were individual sheets in Ulysses. And it works really, really well. And it's just a very polished application that does what it's supposed to do. And it's not saying that it can do absolutely everything. It's saying that it's here for your long form writing and that that's what it's good for. And that really is exactly what it does.
There you go. So more for writers, especially if you're a writer, this could be a tool that you could use for sure. Versus, definitely. I think IA Writer, which is kind of a more general Markdown editor that's less focused on goals, which I enjoy. All right. Up next, the news. Let us talk about the news. This first bit of news is Bloomberg, who I think they just came out with this report. Let's see. It was January 21st. So yesterday, as we record this at 3 a.m., Apple is reportedly, according to Mark Gurman, who cites sources familiar with the matter, Apple is working on its first headset for VR before it works on AR. I do encourage folks who are listening to this to check out yesterday's episode of Tech News Weekly. Our first interview and conversation was with the inimitable Renee Ritchie, who I had on, or who Jason and I had on to kind of go a little bit deeper into this and understand from his perspective kind of what this could mean, whether we should take this, what grains of salt we should take this with, et cetera. But this is now being kind of described as Apple's Mac Pro for VR. So where the Oculus Quest from Facebook is every consumer or a most every consumer targeted product, this VR headset that could potentially ship is going to cost a lot of money from the sounds of it, and is kind of aimed at a very high bar. It's reportedly going to include, it's been tested with chips that are better than the M1 chip that is in Apple's new line of Macs. And given the performance of those M1 chips, that means that it's going to be better than many of the PCs and Macs on the market for performance. And then the display within it, of course, will be better than the screens and displays that are in current headsets. So when you couple a very premium display with a very premium chip, you get a very premium virtual reality experience in theory, but you potentially are looking at a very high price. So I would kind of prepare for the idea of purchasing an HTC Vive and the gaming PC that you need to use it as the comparison to what Apple is providing versus, me being able to eke out the money for an Oculus Quest headset, the second version, which cost a lot less than that. So I don't know. Have you used VR at all? And would you be interested in VR from Apple?
Well, my question is, does it look better than this? Which is the case for my AirPods Max held in front of my eyes. To which the answer is almost certainly. So that's a start. I am very much on the fence about VR. I have had issues with motion sickness in the past. Slightly ironic, as I used to work on a cruise ship among my many previous jobs. So you would think that you wouldn't get motion sick. I do, just apparently not on cruise ships. I was very fortunate. But I'm very much nervous about it because my apartment is small. And I've decorated it nicely so that there's enough space for me to roll out a yoga mat and do some yoga in the living room and things like that. But at the same time, there's not a lot of space. And if VR goes wrong, I could easily end up walking into my TV stand or my dining room table or the kitchen or the wall or falling over my sofa, or if I ever get a cat, tripping over the cat, and things like that. So I'm nervous about things like VR just because I haven't tried it yet. And I don't know if it's really going to be something very enjoyable for me. So I would be interested in, trying this. But I think if I was going to, just say, stuff it, I'll give it a try. I wouldn't necessarily want to be investing in the high end version straight off. I mean, obviously, Apple's version is different. We know that, I have AirPods Max right here. And I also have the Bose headphones. And they are two very different products that I use differently. I use one of them, when I'm sitting on the sofa and the other one when I'm podcasting. And, that works really well for me, but I'm not going to want to necessarily, buy 2 lots of VR stuff. So I'm more interested in AR personally. As somebody who actually wears glasses most of the time, wearing contact lenses right now, I can see that, upgrading my glasses to be smart and show me, directions and things like that. I've already find it great if I'm walking somewhere and I'm not sure where I'm going, that my watch buzzes and taps and, says go left now. So that I know to turn left. And so I'm not constantly looking down at my phone like I don't know where I'm going, because that leads to doing things like tripping in puddles and getting wet socks. Not that happened to me the other day. And things like that. So, I'm more interested in the AR. I see why they're doing VR first, because, it's just VR instead of it having to interact with your existing environment. But VR still needs to interact with your existing environment, so you're not walking into doors.
There you go. I'm very much looking forward to the AR future that Tim Cook is always talking about, and I can't wait for that. But if this is the step that it takes in between, I think this is great. If it is going to cost as much as it sounds like it's going to cost, I doubt I'm going to be able to afford it. But I will certainly go up to Canada and try out Rene Ritchie's whenever he gets it.
Yes.
And happily do that, because I definitely I can see Apple doing a good job with its display technology. And when you've got a display that is this close to your face, for folks listening, I'm just holding my fingers very close to my face. You need to have a very high quality display. You have to. You just have to, if you want to have an ability to pull off this experience. And when I think about the fact that Apple has spent as much time as it has figuring out with the Apple Watch what it quote unquote feels like for someone to fall, or what it feels like for someone to do a dance workout, or what it feels like for someone to, be taking an outdoor walk like I was doing the other day. And it said, oh, I think you might be taking an outdoor walk. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I forgot to record that. There are so many algorithms that Apple has been working on for so long with its sensors that I know it's going to be able to pull off some next level syncing when it comes to looking around in this space. So you pair very high quality screens with Apple's years and years of experience of understanding what one arm's movement means according to sensor feel. And then it's new work on spatial audio. And all of those things come together to create what could be an incredible virtual reality experience, and then eventually an incredible augmented reality experience. So I'm excited for the future. And like I said, I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I'm hoping they'll integrate some of the other tech that we've got. So for people who've got AirPods Max, you'll be able to use those, or AirPods Pro. And if you've got your Apple Watch, then they'll be able to, keep an eye on your heart rate and so on and go, whoa, okay, this seems to be stressing you out. Maybe, that's, a good thing, or maybe that's a bad thing. And maybe I should just pop up a warning and let you know, so that you can make a decision as to whether or not to continue. It obviously depends on what you're doing. I've not played any VR games, but from what I understand, some of them can be a lot of fun and very intense. And so, it'd be great if they can integrate all of that technology together. So let's cross our fingers.
Yes, fingers crossed. For the lovers out there, Apple has a new interactive page on its website for Valentine's Day gifts. So you can check out this page. We'll include a link in the show notes. But first of all, the person who can afford to buy Apple gifts for Valentine's Day in this economy?
I think the cheapest thing on that page, right, is what the Solo Loop or the MagSafe wallet. I actually have the MagSafe wallet and can highly recommend it. And if you know the person you're buying the gift for definitely has both an iPhone 12 or 12th generation, so 12 mini, 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max, and has a MagSafe case, then that could be a good gift. But some of these, like the Solo Loop and so on, how are you going to measure somebody's wrist to find out which size Solo Loop that they need so that you can surprise them on Valentine's Day?
Slyly,
or do you just give them
how do you
that's going to be tricky. Do you just measure everything?
I guess so. Here you can see the interactive portion of it. If you tap on For Lovers Of, you can change it to, let's say, For Lovers of Creativity. And then the page resyncs to show you very expensive devices you can purchase for lovers of creativity. Please don't buy anyone an Apple Pencil if they don't have an iPad to go with it. That's just cruel. But yes, here are some tools that I guess, oh, look, you could buy someone a MacBook Air for Valentine's Day.
Or a MacBook Pro. Hi, I'm in need of a new Valentine with apparently an unlimited credit card.
Look, I was going to say, I am happily in love, but if you're going to buy me a MacBook Pro for Valentine's Day, then maybe I can rethink that. Sorry, Sebastian. Yes. For lovers of health on Valentine's Day, you can get an Apple Watch, a Solo Loop, and Powerbeats Pro. Oh, here we go.
The Nike Sport Loops are really
non-Apple products, which is nice. That they are including these as well, including the Hydrate. I keep eyeballing that. That's the thing that like glows and says, "Hey, you should drink water," and then it'll keep track of your water intake over time. But what's neat about it is that it integrates with Apple Health. And so you can know that you're actually, I might have to get this soon. So I was curious if it did non-Apple products, and it does appear that it does, which is nice. So that is Apple's Valentine's Day for rich folks page. I did want to give a quick consumer update, just to not consumer. What am I trying to say? A quick public update to let everybody know that iOS, tvOS, watchOS, iPadOS, the 14.4 version is somewhere around the corner. Apple has released release candidates of these apps to developers. And so I've been running them on my iOS and on my iPhone and iPad, as well as my watch, probably that updated last night, to the release candidates. I am sad to report that no, toothbrushing as a health record is still not fixed. So I still can't add toothbrushing using shortcuts, unfortunately. Yep. They introduced that in 14.3, I believe. Yep. I may or may not have gotten a word from within letting me know that was going to be coming. So I was super pumped because I had been complaining about this forever. And then it finally happened, and it's still borked. So I haven't had it. And then I was like, oh, maybe the release candidate will fix it, because I know people have reported that it's broken. And alas, it was not fixed to the release candidate. So I'm still waiting on that. But what I'm trying to think of some of the things that are going to be new in 14.4 that maybe folks don't have yet. Smaller QR codes will be able to be recognized with the camera. So if you've been looking at teensy-weensy QR codes and haven't been able to get it working, now you will be able to. This is really nice, actually. Bluetooth, you can classify Bluetooth device type in settings to make sure that if the Bluetooth profile is inaccurate, you can say, no, these are headphones, or these are something else. That's a big one, because we've actually had some troubleshooting questions on iOS, specifically talking about that in particular. So the fact that that's going to be a feature soon is really nice. Now, let's see. This one we talked, I can't remember if we talked about it on this show, but if you get a camera that is not from Apple, the phone will alert you to let you know, hey, this is a counterfeit camera that's installed. And then there are some issues, some bugs that have been fixed. Was there anything that stuck out to you that I may be missing or forgetting?
I mean, it was primarily the reclassification of devices. I've not actually been out to my car since I did this, since I did the update. So I need to double check whether or not I can reclassify the Bluetooth that's in my car as a car, because if I can, then that will automatically enable Do Not Disturb while I'm driving for me. And that would be brilliant, because that's the missing piece of my puzzle that I need. And we'll get to that a bit later in the show. But it's definitely one of those things where I'm hoping that this is actually going to solve my problem, and hopefully it will solve many other people's problems too.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, I just wanted to mention, because you've got these, iFixIt did a teardown of the AirPods Max, and there was just some interesting stuff in the teardown. Of course, lots of processors, lots of different chips, as we knew, but it also included some information about the way that the device connects with both of the ear cups that makes it unique, and some of the charging features. So those things were kind of interesting. It has a very high quality connector between the two, and then the fact that the headphone band is detachable using a SIM ejector tool, which points to a potential future in which these devices can have headbands switched out, and that pairs with 9to5Mac reports that iOS 14.4 has a type identifier for headband type. So it could be that a different headband would do something. I don't know exactly, because they said it could be just as simple as if you have the sport headband instead of this comfort headband, it will just change the way that the icon looks in the iOS thing. But still kind of cool, right?
Yeah, it is. I have my AirPods Max right here, and I have a SIM card ejector. Should I do it? I probably shouldn't do it live on there.
Yes.
That would be a bad idea.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, but I love the fact that these tore down, and they tore down relatively well as far as Apple teardowns go. Let's be honest. Whenever iFixIt takes a look at these things, it's always glue everywhere. So the fact that these are more modular than people may have thought. I mean, we already knew that the ear pads, you can just pop them off. They're just magnetic. I'm not using any force whatsoever here, and just popping it off, and then it slides right back on. That's great, and I love the fact that you can, change all of that. Is wonderful. So let's see.
Yeah. And then what? They also went ahead and Anthony, maybe you can show that one of the most popular pair of third-party headphones from Sony. They tore those down just to kind of draw a comparison between what the headphones from Apple look like versus which those are the headphones that I have here, Sony's WH blur blur blurdy blur blur. These ones are expensive and good quality headphones and sound great and are kind of well liked by a lot of folks. But they tore them down just to kind of show the difference of the hardware inside of these versus Apple's hardware for its headphones. And yeah, then they tore down Bose's NC700, which are also popular headphones on the Bose side, because it's kind of like you either like Bose active noise cancellation or you like Sony active noise cancellation, and there's kind of no in between there. And so they tore down the most popular of each of them and showed this is what's inside of these versus Apple's, which have these ridiculous technologies built into them, and again perhaps point to some reasoning for why they cost as much as they do.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, and here in my settings, you can see my Sony headphones. Underneath that, it shows device type, and I could choose this is a car stereo, these are headphones, this is a hearing aid, this is a speaker, or this is an other. And then based on that, it can make an adjustment. It says specifying the type of device can ensure your headphone audio level measurements are accurate. So
that's great. Yeah, because I've had some weird issues with the volume level in my car not necessarily being quite right. So hopefully this will sort that out.
Sweet. I think that's going to do it for us on news. Let us move on to our feedback.
And we've got some great feedback this week.
Yes, we do. The first bit of feedback is super exciting. I loved this, and so I'm just going to kind of read it whole because it was touching. So this is from Chris. Hello, Mikah and Rosemary. First of all, I love Leo, but Rosemary is awesome. So glad to have her as your co-host. Hey, me too, Chris.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Chris writes in, I wrote in last summer to thank you for suggesting the Paprika app. As an iPhone user who is blind, I find saving recipes from the web annoying at the least, and that's after I have managed to slog through all those ads. I have not had the heart to check out Rosemary's recommendation of crouton, even though Mikah was excited about it. I'm just too dedicated to Paprika. Totally understand. I love Paprika. What I especially wanted to share with you is that in your latest episode, 532, Rosemary shared the Henry Habit app. I thought, what the heck? For $1.99, I can see if it's accessible. All of my habits are lofty, and I rarely keep them because I didn't have a system that really resonated with me. So I downloaded the app. While I could use it and did set up my first 2 habits, there were many unlabeled buttons, a right arrow for next, etc. You have to turn on voiceover recognition to determine what the buttons do, and turn off recognition to enter text and fields for the habit name, the notes, etc. I read reviews, and the developer seemed to be so responsive that I decided to write him and see if he would make it accessible for blind or visually impaired users. Within an hour, I got a wonderful note back from him. He was surprised at what the app could do with VoiceOver turned on and without any work on his end. However, he ran the Accessibility Inspector, which is a tool. This is an aside. He didn't write this, but Accessibility Inspector is a tool that comes with Xcode, which is the developer application for making apps that lets you see problem points within your app where you could make it more accessible for folks. So let me go back. However, he ran the Accessibility Inspector and found 25 unlabeled buttons. He labeled those buttons immediately and pushed the app out to the App Store. Wow! Within an hour, he fixed things. He will be happy to work with me to tweak it to ensure that it is accessible. A big shout out to the developer. Thanks again for suggesting such awesome apps, and a big shout out to a very responsive developer. Keep the great podcasts coming. I love it.
Love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's such a, that was such a happy moment for me.
Yeah, I really hope all developers take this to heart because, if you run the Accessibility Inspector, you can find things and fix things. And I know Shelley Brisbane, who hosts a podcast on the Relay Network, where we both have other podcasts, Mikah, she's a big advocate for accessibility. I know she would be very happy to hear that, developers know the Accessibility Inspector is there and that it can fix things with very little work. So let's hope that all developers do this and that we can continue to suggest great apps for Chris.
Yes. Jason writes in, actually, no, you read this one. This one was definitely for you.
Yes. Okay. So Jason wrote in and said that last episode, Rosemary, talked about a Bluetooth setup that I've got in my car. And he was wondering if there's an episode where we talk about this as well as the shortcuts that I use. Well, Jason, that episode is right here, right now, episode 533 of iOS Today. And I'm going to tell you how I did this. So the first step for me was the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I am using the Max. That is the big one right here. It's a very, very big phone. And you don't have to use the biggest phone, but I like the big one. But it has to be from the 12th generation. That and a MagSafe charger. So you need those 2 devices because if you put the MagSafe charger on the back of the iPhone, it'll hold it in place, okay? I've got the silicone case on there as well, which is adding to that, which makes it a little better. And then for my car, I looked and I found, and there were a choice of 2 different magnetic mounts that I looked at. And now neither of these will mount directly to the MagSafe on the back of the iPhone. Now, some of these are going to be coming out at some point. They're coming to the market. But at the time when I first got my iPhone 12 Pro Max, they weren't there yet. So I got an MPAL magnetic dock, and this slides into the CD player of my 2010 Honda Jazz. That's a Honda Fit in the US. And there's one that you can just stick to your dash as well. And hopefully we'll be able to put those links in the show notes. But this just slides in, and then my MagSafe charger magnetizes straight onto that. Okay, so I leave that in the car. And then what I do is I just put my phone on that charger. And when I turn on the electrics of my car, the Bluetooth adapter that I've got in my car, which is just USB on one end and it's got an aux plug on the other. My car does not have Bluetooth. So I grabbed one of these. It's pretty cheap. I think it was about $15. And you can get these. I was going to get the U-Green one, but it was out of stock for a couple of months. So I got another brand, Hagibis or something. And it seems to be working pretty well. And I just plug that in. So whenever my phone detects that Bluetooth device is connected, then it pops up and asks me where I want to go. And it just has a dictionary in that shortcut, which is names and addresses. And so I select a name, and then it outputs the address, and it puts that, and it opens that in Google Maps, and it plays my driving playlist on shuffle for me. And that's it. That's all I have it do. It works really, really well. But I absolutely love it. And it means that I have upgraded the smarts in my car for about, certainly less than $100 if you've got the MagSafe charger and everything. I already had a cigarette lighter adapter, which had the USB-C and USB on, because there are no USB ports in my car. This is, definitely an old-fashioned car. I'm fortunate it had an aux port so that I could do the audio, but everything works great for me. And I'm loving it. It was a very cheap way to do things. And of course, if I'm somewhere and I've forgotten my charger, I actually have a USB charging block that I keep in the glove compartment, and I can just grab that and the MagSafe charger, and I can charge my phone. So I'm pretty happy.
Nice. Neil is our next, and of course, we'll include those links in the show notes. Neil is our next one. Neil writes in, "Hi, since I just switched from Android to the iPhone, I now have a question. For those of us with non-Apple Bluetooth headpieces, how can we get a volume somewhere between mute and too loud? Seriously, one notch above 0 is too loud. I even tried a fancy app that lets you dial in a volume level, and if I put it between 1 and 11, it then either jumps to 0, muted, or 12, too loud, just like the volume slider does. I'm not going to have Apple things hanging out of my ears. Help." Well, Neil, this is where I want to start, because to me, it sounds like you've got a problem on the Bluetooth headphones side of things. Mm-hmm. This is a miscommunication taking place somewhere between the device and the Bluetooth headphones. And I would, and this, maybe you haven't had this issue on Android with these Bluetooth headphones, and so it is some sort of compatibility issue with iOS. And so this is a hard one because it sounds like even if you do just turn the volume up by 1, it's still being too loud. It's still just hopping over to way too loud. So there are a couple of things that I would suggest on the troubleshooting side. First, go into, launch the settings app, tap on Bluetooth, and then you will see a list of the different Bluetooth devices that you have. And next to one of those Bluetooth devices, you can click the little eye icon, the information icon. And when you click the little blue information icon, and I'll pull up something so you can see here, you will see the option that says forget this device. Forget it. Tap that forget this device button. I believe a prompt pops up to say, do you want to confirm you do want to forget the device? And then don't start yet. Restart your iPhone, iPad, whatever it is. And then turn off your Bluetooth device, turn it back on to put it into pairing mode, and then pair it again. Let's start there. So basically, we're troubleshooting if the Bluetooth pairing is not full, there's something going on there, there's something wrong there. If that doesn't fix it, then you need to find the manual for your Bluetooth headpiece, whatever it happens to be. So, maybe it came in the package, maybe but what you want to do is as close to a factory reset of the Bluetooth device as you possibly can. So not just turning it off and on again, but find the manual so that it tells you, usually it's like pressing 3 different buttons or something like that until you hear the beep. Find the way to actually force restart completely or factory reset that Bluetooth device, and then go through the pairing process again. If that doesn't fix it, then at that point you can say, okay, I've got a bigger problem. At that point, I do wonder if the new version of iOS that will be coming out sometime soon that has the ability to change the device type is something that could help you, because it could be that the Bluetooth profile that's being pushed to the iPhone, iPad, whatever, is misreading it as some other type of device where the volume settings are different. And that could be causing the problem. That, of course, is something that you have to wait for. And so you're not going to be able to fix that now. But those are the suggestions that I have. You absolutely should not have to have Apple-made headsets in order to listen to your music comfortably. And for me, that's not the case. I've got a pair of very inexpensive, it's made by a company called iFrogs. iFrogs earphones that are Bluetooth enabled, and I use those all the time, and they work fine with my iOS devices. I just talked about the Sony headphones that, plugged in or over Bluetooth, they work fine. And then I've got, AirPods and things like that. And of course, those seem to work well. So it shouldn't be that you're using a third-party pair of Bluetooth headpieces, headphones or earphones, whatever they happen to be. There's something else going on here, I want to think. Now, Rosemary, you put a little note in the document. Is there another idea that you have?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in iOS 14.4, whenever that lands, or if you're comfortable trying out the beta, then you could try changing the device type. Because if it's set up to be, say, a car stereo, then it's probably going to be outputting a different volume level to what it should be outputting as headphones. So that's definitely something else that you should look at. And the other thing is I'm not sure what the fancy app is that you tried to dial in the volume level, but shortcuts might be another way of trying this. So what you would do in shortcuts is there's an action to set the volume level. But before that, you want a number action. And then you can just type, so for example, 5. And then if you tap and hold on the set volume percentage that comes up, it's a slider. If you tap and hold, you should be able to select the number and then set the volume for, that. The other thing you can try is setting the volume before you connect the device and then setting it again after you connect the device. So it should remember what the volume level for that device is when you connect it, so that you're not automatically blasted with super loud, music when you connect headphones to, say, your Apple TV. But just in case, trying setting it before you connect the device and then again when you connect the device, that might also work. But I do know that some things, for example, if you're trying to set, the percentage of lights with HomeKit, setting it to 3% is exactly the same as setting it to 5%, which in most cases is the same as 10%, just because they're not granular enough for that. 57% is different to 67%, but you're not necessarily going to notice the difference between 57 and 60. So it may just be that something is automatically jumping. So if the reset, as Micah suggested, doesn't work, then you may need to, try setting it differently somehow. And shortcuts might be a way to do that.
All right. And then the last question comes from Paul, who writes in, some time ago, I wrote to you enthused about the HomePod stereo, which I'm using with my Apple TV. Paul is talking about the ability to set up a stereo pair where if you have two HomePods, you can tell them to work together, one putting out left channel audio, one putting out right channel audio. It was working great. Then suddenly the right channel HomePod stopped working and I only get sound out of one of the speakers. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why. Weirdly, if I change the volume on the one that has no sound, the volume does increase or decrease volume on the other. Any ideas? So there, Paul is saying that if I walk up to the speakers and the one that's not working, the right channel one, on top, if I hit the plus, 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 or the minus, 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 it brings down the volume, even though it's not putting out audio itself. So he's saying it seems like it's still connected, but it's not actually putting out audio. Well, to me, Paul, this speaks to some sort of pairing issue. So I looked up the sort of what am I trying to say? The user guide for the two features, because there are two different things that you're doing here. You're doing a stereo pair, and you're using the home theater system that the HomePod supports with the Apple TV. So we have to start by talking about the official way that it's called by Apple is HomePod with Apple TV 4K for home theater sound. It's a very long name. I just have taken to calling it the home theater sound or home theater audio, whichever one. So what we're going to do, Paul, is first, we got to unpair these babies. I believe that there's something going wrong with the pairing process. So go ahead and unlink the stereo pair. The way that you do that is in the Home app on your iOS or iPadOS device, touch and hold the HomePod pair. So find the two HomePods in your Home app, and you're touching and holding down on it. Then you tap the settings button which I believe appears in the bottom right-hand corner. I don't have a stereo pair, but thank you. But I do have a HomePod. And so,
tell you what, for science, I will just pair my office HomePod with my living room HomePod. This is not going to go wrong at all. I'm just going to I'll rename my office HomePod first, just because otherwise I am going to have a problem. Office HomePod. There we go. Okay, it's Office Honor because that's what happened. Create stereo pair. I'm going to add that one. Okay.
Do you want to switch
say they're in
so
the living room?
See your phone?
Yeah, I will just do that. Okay, so here we are with my iPhone, hopefully. Yes, wonderful. Okay, so I have my office HomePod and my living room HomePod, and I could switch them around here. It's being configured. Additional settings will be available shortly. Let's just try closing that, going into my living room. And yes, it is indeed configuring. And my curtains are updating too. You can restart that here. There we go. So speakers. And if I pop into an individual speaker, then I should be able to disable that. But it's still configuring right now, I'm afraid. So it looks like that is going to take a while to pop up, unfortunately.
Yeah, so,
I did have this
unfortunately, we won't be able to show you. But essentially, I can show you here on mine. There is the little settings option, and so once you get that option, then you will tap ungroup accessories. So once you've got those ungrouped and the HomePods are once again separated, and again, we'll include links to this in the show notes, then you can recreate the stereo pair. You obviously know how to create a stereo pair as you've done it before. So follow the on-screen settings to create the stereo pair one more time, and then we're going to pop over to use the Apple TV to play audio throughout your home, which is in the Apple TV user guide. And it tells you how to set up the Apple TV with the HomePod 4K, or with the HomePod with the Apple TV for 4K for home theater sound, which you also know how to do. So basically, we're going to follow through those steps one more time and reconnect those, Paul, and see if that fixes it. So unfortunately, sometimes these things can unpair or sort of get the sync off for whatever reason. And you may remember that recently the HomePod software was updated. So that may have been what triggered this issue. Mm-hmm. And so it's just as simple as having to reconnect those. Yeah. But given that you were able to hit the minus and plus buttons on the one HomePod and get the volume to change on the other one, that tells me that it's configured properly in terms of they're linked up and they're linked with your Apple TV. It's just something is causing it not to push out to the right channel. And that to me sounds like it is just a sync issue that unfortunately is one of those turn it off and back on again systems. And that is how you do that.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is because I've got it right here now, if you just scroll down to the bottom of your HomePod settings for your HomePod pair, then you should be able to tap ungroup accessories, and then you can ungroup them, and then bam, you should have your two HomePods there. The other thing I would highly recommend you check is inside of the HomePod, in its settings, or inside of the HomePods in their settings, see if you can see what Wi-Fi network they're connected to. Because if you can find out that it's actually on the wrong Wi-Fi network, I had this recently. This HomePod was on the wrong Wi-Fi network. I don't know how the other Wi-Fi network on my router, my ISP provided router, Mikah, got turned back on, but it did, and my HomePod connected to it. And this was the only HomePod. I couldn't play to it. And I was trying to figure out why. So if you can AirPlay to other HomePods, but you can't AirPlay to that specific HomePod, then it might be that it's on the wrong Wi-Fi network. So have a look at that as well. Because if you can just turn off that Wi-Fi network that it's connected to, that it shouldn't be talking to, then that should bounce it back onto the right Wi-Fi network without you having to unpair and repair your stereo pair.
All right. Well, I believe it is time for us to put on some hats, put on some caps, and talk about our app picks of the week. I am wearing my fall cap just because I love this cap. This was my mom's, and she didn't ever really wear it. And so I said, Mom, can I have that? And she said, you want to wear this flower hat? And I said, yeah, I do. But it just reminds me of fall. I really like it. Just some simple sort of fall flowers and roses. And I think So whatever that orange flower is, I'm not sure. But it makes me think of fall, and I love fall. So that's mine. Now, what's yours? What are you working with there?
I'm going with Robin Hood today. So I've got the green, the red, and the flower, which is feather. So I'm one of the merry men. I'm an honorary merry man today, which is always great fun.
I dig it. So we wear these hats to honor our app picks of the week. These are either new apps we've seen that we are excited about, or apps that we've used for a long time that we want to share with all of you. Rosemary Orchard, tell me your app pick of the week.
My app pick of the week is Fig. And Fig is a fruit, but Fig in this case is also an iPhone and iPad app for Discourse. Discourse, the forum software, not Discord, the chat software for streamers. So Discourse is a forum, and for those of you who don't know, Twit has a Discourse forum, which means that after every episode, you could come and talk about the episode with other people that have watched it. And Fig is a lovely way to do that. The app's written in Swift UI, and it's free, and you can connect to all sorts of great forums. So I've got automators, I've got the MacPower users, Agenda, a great app, and I've got the Twit community here. And you just, you add the community, and then you can log in, or if you don't yet have an account, you can sign up. And I can just sign in, and it pops up, and it'll ask me to authorize it. I've already signed in once on this device. And then you can go and you can just have a browse and go, oh, yeah, I'm looking for iOS today. That's right there. And there we go. There's the recent episode, and people are chatting about it. And there's a question for us, which we'll get back to answering at some point. But, you can actually just dive in, and it's really easy to write answers and reply. And for those of you who've tried the original Discourse app, you might find that it feels a little bit off from time to time. That's because it's just Safari. Whereas this is using the Discourse APIs and Swift UI over the top just to make it a really lovely iPhone experience. So I would highly recommend this. And it's got a unified inbox as well, so I can see all of my notifications across all of the forums. So most of these are from MPU Talk, but there's one from Automators in here. If I scroll back a bit further, there should be one from Twit as well. And I can also discover some new forums. So if I'm interested in learning Swift, then there's a forum for Swift users or writers, developers. There's Plex forums, there's the python.org forums, and so on. So if you are looking for a way to communicate with other fans of the Twit network, then this could be a great way to do it.
I love it. My app pick of the week is one called Agree. I was going to show off another one, but this one came up at the last minute, and this starts with a story. I remember there was a long time ago, I wanted to, this was back in the day when we all gathered together, and I was with my family, and we were trying to figure out a restaurant to go to, and iMessage apps had just come out. And so I wanted to use an iMessage app that lets you kind of set up a poll among all of your family, and then you could choose the place that we wanted to go and eat. And so I sent it to everybody, and everybody voted, and then we came out with an answer at the end. But since that point, I have not really used one of those tools since. But one was I just saw this morning, and now I'm having trouble remembering where I saw it. I want to say it was on Twitter, but it may have been in the App Store promoted. But it's called Agree, and it is a poll app, and it is available to download for free. And then if you want to have unlimited polls, you pay $2.99 one time, and of course you're supporting an independent developer, and you get some fun stuff like what is the word I'm looking for? You get some fun stuff like custom icons. So Agree. I did a little one this morning where I was working with Rosemary to show how this works. And so I didn't quite do it in the way that you would normally do a poll. The poll was, how cool is this app? And then, you chose 1 for not cool at all, 2, 3 is neutral, 4, and 5, which is the coolest. And you swipe to vote in the poll. Now, I've already done this, so it's not going to work. But you can see a new notification has been posted. That's, I would imagine, is Rosemary making adjustments to the poll. So let me set up a new one. And we will say, what app will you, actually, let's do this. Download app is the name of the poll. And then here I'll say, what app will you download next? ? And then we choose some options. And so we'll do Keep It. We'll do Drafts. We'll do IA Writer. We'll do, I just hit the little plus to add more. Ulysses, and the X will remove them. And then we'll do spaces. And then we choose done. And then I hit the little checkbox, and you can see that now this one is not marked off. I have the poll set to keep running until tomorrow, so you can choose a different date. Maybe I want the poll to go until Tuesday at noon. And at the top right is where I can add people to the poll. So there are different ways to do it. You can either message, or if Slack somebody, or send it over Twitter DM or what have you. So I would send a message to Rosemary, for example. She gets a link to download the app, and then it will pop open for her as an invite in the app. Now, you can see that when I tap on that, I get to choose now. Am I going to download Keep It? No, because I already have Keep It. Oops. Am I going to download Drafts? No, because I do have Drafts. Not IA Writer. Yes, I'm going to download Ulysses again because I'm interested in checking out the new features it has. And no, I'm not going to download Spaces. And then I choose Mark as completed. So then everybody gets an update for that who is invited into the poll. So again, this is good. Again, when you're back with other people once more, you could have it for your works. Maybe once a week, you get lunch together or something. And so you put the different options in there. And then as people vote, you can see what is getting the most votes. And so, yeah, I mean, just think it's a poll. It's a way to create polls, and it's a way to share those polls between different people. So I think the one downside of this is that everybody has to download the app in order to use it. Which is kind of annoying, but it will work for other people for free. So it's not as if they have to also pay the $2.99 in order to use it. Just the person that is making multiple polls is the one that has to pay the $2.99. So it's free to download, and it's a nice little poll app. So a little kind of very specific utility that if you're looking for something that helps you, that will let you create polls, then you can use this. Oh, and I forgot to mention it's universal. So I have polls Agree pulled up on my Mac, and I am currently seeing the syncing of my polls to show me what the votes are currently. So yeah, a simple app, but for folks who are looking for a way to use to easily figure out this, I think that this is a great app to check out. So that's Agree.
Yes, Agree is great.
Alrighty.
And I agree that it's wonderful.
Excellent. And I'm always down for an app name pun. Folks, if you have questions that you need answered, if you have troubleshooting issues that you need to know about, you can send us your questions at iostoday@twit.tv. iostoday@twit.tv. That is where you can go to have your questions answered. You can send the questions in audio, in video form if you want. Try to keep it under 30 seconds, but we love to have that as well. And of course, text is always an option. You can tune in live to the show if you want to watch us and hang out with us while we're doing the show by going to twit.tv/live. We record the show live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. That's 11 a.m. Pacific, which is 1800 UTC. So all the time places are covered. You can do the math if you need to. But the best way to get the show is by subscribing to the show. You do that by going to twit.tv/iOS. You go there, you click subscribe to audio, subscribe to video, and you get the show in the format of your choice at the service of your choice. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you go to get your podcasts, we are there and ready for you to check out the show. And like I said, that's the best way to do it. We should also mention that our survey is quickly coming to an end, and we don't want to miss your feedback. We want to hear from you. If you have not done it yet, we really want to hear from you. You just go to twit.tv/survey21. That's SURVEY21 to take it now before it closes in February. That's right. The doors are slowly closing shut. So you better get in there and have your question or have your feedback registered. Of course, this is just a way for us to understand who you are out there and for us to make sure that our shows match up with our audience and that our sponsors match up with our audience. So it's all about making the experience better for you. It'll only take you a few minutes to do so. twit.tv/survey21 is where you go for that. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online, where's the best place to go to make that happen?
Best place is rosemaryorchard.com or Rosemary Orchard on Twitter or micro.blog if you want to, actually send me a message. Or, of course, in www.twit.community is the Twit forums. And I will, of course, be checking out every iOS Today thread right there.
Beautiful, beautiful. You can find me at chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUAHUA.coffee, which is the site that has links to all the places I exist online. But I'm pretty much at Mikah Sargent everywhere, even places that maybe I don't want to be. I always try to register my username so nobody else is me on those places. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Rosemary, for another great episode of iOS Today. And folks, we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Sometimes the news of the week is best told by the people making and breaking it, and that is the essence of Tech News Weekly. Join me, Jason Howell, along with my co-host Mikah Sargent, as we interview the people who are breaking the news that you're probably already talking about. Plus, sometimes we actually get the people who are making the news, the people behind the story. That's Tech News Weekly on twit.tv.